and welcome to Ignite with Mwangala, with me, Mwangala Chakalashi Santos. Now remember, the aim of this show is to bring you real people with real stories meant to leave a lasting and positive impact on your lives. Today, I am joined by a leader, a trainer, a consultant, an executive coach, a mentor, and a founder and executive director of Mihachi Company. He is no other than Professor Dr. Micheal Dynamite Ben Munkumba. Welcome to Ignite.
Thank you, Mwangala.
I hope I got all your names.
99.999%.
I like that. Did I leave out any name?
Benson.
Benson.
In full.
In full.
That's my father.
Okay, great. It's good to have you on Ignite.
My pleasure.
And how do I address you? Is it Professor Doctor first or is it Doctor Professor?
I think Professor alone is enough.
Professor.
But my name is Micheal.
Micheal. I like that. I mean, I was looking at your profile where you just said Micheal because
Yes.
that's who you are.
Yeah.
So talking about Micheal, who is Micheal?
Okay, that's a $1 million question. It's loaded, but I'll simplify it. I was born not far from here, Chifumungule, in a village named after my surname. Munkumba is a village. I went to Kapopo School right here, not far from town. In fact, if you're at Independence Stadium, or let me say if we are in my village, we can see Independence Stadium. So it's not very far. I went to Mkushi Secondary School, University of Zambia, went abroad, worked for Bank of Zambia, Barclays, in the days of ZCBC, Indeco Central, Zambia Sugar, Deloitte and Touche, Zambia Airways. Then I went abroad. I went outside. Worked for SAMI 29 years. I've come back. I am married. My wife is Catherine Munkumba, an artist, fashion designer, florist, interior, exterior designer.
That explains the shirt you're wearing.
This is from our, see how they match?
Oh, yes.
From our shop.
Okay.
Catherine does that. She was in Kenya for 18 years and was voted by other fashion designers as the #1 designer in the country.
Wow.
In Kenya, in Nairobi. We have boys, 4 boys. They are all with us. I have my mother still there in the village. My dad is late. I have brothers and sisters. I'm number 6th in the family, but I'm now number 1st because the other 5 have gone. This is who I am. And you've already said I'm a consultant, I'm a trainer, yes, I'm a
You're
lecturer.
everything put together.
Yes, because of all these many years, I mean, you kind of go in. That's the only way to maintain your, how can I put it, your passion? Because I can't imagine sitting in one thing for 20 years. I just couldn't. I started off as an accountant, sitting in an office. And I just couldn't. After a few years, I moved out
to something else.
To start consulting. Then I went to training. Then I went to lecturing. Then I started doing all of them, plus authoring and researching. But what I love the most is training. Because then there I can see a direct impact on the people I'm talking to. And I have trained again from very junior people to an entire cabinet sitting. And I'm training them. So I can talk to all of them. And then I love to mentor as well. So I mentor directors, CEOs, but even some young people who just says, I just want to be mentored by you. And I do that. It's that transformation that really gives satisfaction. So I kind of go all around now.
Wow. So you've talked of passion. Where is your heart in all this? In training, in lecturing, I think that's the same.
The word passion itself, and I was watching an interview recently, and the sister was really talking about where her passion is and how you need passion. So get purpose and get passion. I love to dig the root words, where the genesis of a word, or the big word etymology. Etymology means how the word came about. So passion, from Latin, the word is patior. Patior means suffering. That's why you have the Passion of the Christ, that movie. It's the suffering of the Christ. So passion actually is suffering, but suffering in the sense of perseverance, persistence. What is this that gives you persistence? You don't give up easily. That's what passion is. So where is it that I can operate without ever giving up or becoming discouraged? It's exactly what I mentioned. When I see people's lives transformed, which is why, for instance, poverty really moves me. When I see people poor, every time I go to the village, just a week or so I was in beyond Chongwe, those sides, deep in the villages. I also come from those villages, and when you see a sense of hopelessness on people's faces, it kind of moves me. If I drive through Kanyama or something and I see that kind of people not having any drive, that moves me, and I'm thinking, what could I do about this? And I know that transformation starts here first. It's not even money.
Yeah.
You can give a poor person money and next week they are poor again. But if you transform them in the mind, then the money you give them makes sense. So it is when I see lives changed, that gives me so much satisfaction. Which is why I wrote a book, and I've written books.
Oh, yes. Well, that's so powerful. So for you, what is important is to ensure that the mind changes. I think which takes us to the Bible, isn't it? Be transformed.
By the renewing of your mind.
By the renewal of the mind. Okay. So how do you do that? I'm so excited. Today on Ignite, we are learning. I was just telling you that usually it's about people telling their stories, where they're coming from. And you've just done that. You've told us where you're coming from and where you're going.
Correct.
Okay. So you're teaching us. How do you ensure that people's minds are transformed? Because we've heard this big word, transformation. And I'm hoping you can break it down for us the way you did for passion.
All right. Transform. Okay.
Yes.
I think two things that can change people's minds. One is education. The other one is learning.
Is there a difference between the two?
Huge difference. Okay. Education comes from two Latin words. E in education, E is X, EX. And EX means out of. So when you say export, we're exporting things, you are saying out of the port of Dar es Salaam.
Yes.
For instance. So export, out of. X can also mean ahead of. So as in excellence, ahead of the crowd. Celere, crowd, X, out of, or ahead of. So education is out of jukare, ignorance. X, out of ignorance. So remove people from ignorance first.
That's education.
Yes, but that's only one part, which is why I say, if you have a diploma or a degree, you're educated. Just one degree or a diploma, you're educated. You don't have to have many degrees like myself.
Yeah, like yourself.
Those are added advantages.
Okay.
That's it. But you basically are no longer ignorant. Your brain has been massaged sufficiently enough to be able to learn now. Which is, learning is possible even without education. I mean, when we were little and our characters were being formed by our parents, we were not educated yet. But we were learning. You learned how to live with people, how to respect the elderly. You were still a pre-scholar or just starting primary school. You were not educated. Yet you were learning already. So learning is a lifelong thing. Even after you're very educated, you still continue to learn lifelong. And this is where the question you were hinting before we started.
Yes.
How you can have functional illiterates. They are educated, but they are not learned. So they were moved out of ignorance. Then they learned nothing. They crammed things, memorized things, and passed, got straight A's. But they didn't learn. And so they come to the office and they can't perform. You know, but you have these degrees, why can't you perform? They didn't learn. They just crammed and they passed exams. And if you ask, part of the weaknesses of our education system is exactly that. That we emphasize cramming. It's called rote learning in this sense. So you just cram, get straight A's, but you didn't learn nothing. So the idea should be to learn. Learning now, we talk about moving through 4 stages. You want me to say them?
Please, by all means.
The first one is called unconscious incompetence. Unconscious incompetence. That means you don't know that you don't know. That's where we start.
But you don't know.
You actually don't know, but you're not even aware you don't know. And this is when I say, when you see ignorance speaking with confidence, then there is danger there. Even the guy is ignorant, but speaking with all the confidence. Then when you watch, this guy doesn't know, but the confidence is incredible. That guy is beyond redemption, right? The
course.
second one, which is better, is conscious incompetence. So I know that I don't know. Now I begin to seek to know. Third one, conscious competence. I know that I know. This is good. It gives you a lot of self-confidence, very high self-esteem.
Because you know that you know.
Upside. Downside, arrogance. So you have to manage the arrogance, the pride, the hubris side.
So where are you, Professor? You're a professor. You're a doctor.
Okay, the fourth one now. Even many professors don't reach the fourth one. They just reach the I know that I know. Then they are
And it ends
showy,
there.
look down on everybody. The fourth one is unconscious competence. You don't even know that you know, and yet you know a lot. So when you speak, you think you're just saying obvious things, but people are like, what was that?
Yes,
Look,
where
you
did
mean
that come from?
But I thought this is a usual. I said, no, can you say it again?
Yes.
That's now the level of wisdom.
How does one get to number 4?
Oh, you must be a learner, definitely. Because when you're a learner, you learn from anybody. I think it's the English who said even a broken down clock is correct at least once a day. At least. If you're using the PM, AM, PM, it will be correct twice. If you're using the 2400 hours,
Yeah, it will be
once.
correct
Meaning
once.
when the minute or the hour hand reaches where it broke down, actually it's correct. When the sun reaches there, it's correct. But then the sun goes past and it's wrong again. So at least once it's correct. You can learn from even a fool when you are wise. You are willing to learn.
Yeah.
That's how you get there.
When
so
your cup is
it becomes a
empty,
matter,
right?
exactly. It becomes a matter of attitude now. An attitude that says, I don't know everything, I can never know everything, and everybody has something I could learn. That comes, I think we say the more you know, the more you realize you don't know. And that makes you a learner. But it's also a decision you make that I'm going to be a lifelong learner. I will seek to learn throughout. I get my education, yes, but I will seek to learn. There's so much out there to learn anyway. This is why we talk about mentorship, because if you have a mentor, they help you see your blind sides. I don't know
They
if
walk with you.
you've heard of the Johari window.
Yes.
Johari window, some things I know about myself, others also know. Some things I don't know about myself, others don't know. Some things I know about myself, others don't know. Some things other people know about me, I don't know.
For sure.
So if I have a mentor, they will see my blind spots and tell me. So if I'm proud, I think I know everything, they tell me, hold on. This is a vice, it's a weakness. You need to learn to learn. So a mentor is one way to really help you get there. But reading is another. Reading books.
Reading, and we don't have a reading culture. We don't have a reading culture.
Disaster.
I think it's not just Zambia, but I think in Africa, we are not trained to read. You can actually, somebody told me that you can actually hide money in a book.
Yes, of course. From an African, they say.
From an
African. Put in a check there.
Put in a check,
expire.
it will expire.
It's again our education system. I got to love to read, and that's why I'm able to write in secondary school. I had a teacher from Malawi. He went to Oxford University, and then he came into exile. He was teaching us English, and he told me, young man, just learn to read. So he told me, start reading these books. Now those African writers, the
Chinua
Achebe, we had the Gungi wa Thiong'o, River Between. I read all When Things Fall Apart, yes. Read all those, I finished them. He said, now start reading the English one. So Huckleberry Finn, Tom Sawyer, Cinderella. I read all those. That's why I fell in love with books. I did the same to my children. Guys, learn to read. Well, one of them who's done law now, he's probably read 3,000 books.
Oh my God.
More than I have.
Well, I want you to hold that thought because we take a break. When we come back,
Right.
I want us to look at how can we change the narrative of you go to school, you get good grades, get a good job.
You have arrived.
Then you have arrived. If you've not done all these things, then you will amount to be nothing at all. So we take a short break, and when we come back, we dive deep into that.
Pleasure.
We take a break, and when we come back, we continue talking to Professor Micheal Munkumba. Don't go away.
Tutu.
Sawa sawa.
Ndabola Tutu nywe tuganga dawa aba balombe. Usimbi wangu bevo.
No atate babia.
Umtoka kanya mukoko kabenzi nina.
Kutakulwa kambotoka kakasika coronavirus.
Ndawambira ndakwambira masiku tako niwati mvida. Ndawushupa marashupa baso.
Waile mama.
Mashtazi waile.
Kulisi tuzi njemwe.
Yese ndo bani wachitawo waile.
Oza. Ndari yowe. Iwe. Chachitika kunjengeni.
Ndaipompo nona.
Mtu wako olabereka kabotio. Wapomponera zinjinge.
Kwakasika ulwazi. Obulwazi batata tabuyanze kwendenda. Tabuyanze kwanzanya. Tabuyanze zokuja nkabantu banje. Obulwazi bulajaya. Apo obulwazi batata. Tabuyanze kuti chindi chonse akamjani kabantu banje zokulumelesa nyanzi ape bulezi tondezo zakaina zokuteti muntu obulwazi bulabuchiswa. Zitondezo zakaina kuli kuchiswa mutwe. Sini kolo mubiri kupia zazitondezo zakaenezi. Obulwazi buli kwabila kwinda mukusamba kumanza chinchonse ansipa amanzi clean. Apa kunana akate kwakaitwa kuti nze cancer tiger.
Oho, hand sanitizer. Okay. Kubanga wakome naye boy. Kubanga wakome.
Remember to wash your hands with soap regularly. For more information, call 909. This message is supported by the Ministry of Health in partnership with Oxfam.
Welcome back. If you're joining us now, I am talking to Professor Micheal Munkumba, and we are talking about leadership. We're talking about so many other things that I think the last 15 minutes has been very, very educative for me. I wish you had told me to come with a paper and a pen. I would have been taking notes because you rarely get such an opportunity to sit with a professor.
You can rewatch this.
I will rewatch it so many times and write. Yeah, now we're talking about, I remember when I was growing up, I mean, I'm sure you do that for your kids as well. Go to school, you need to make sure you get the grades, and I want you to be a lawyer, I want you to be, we actually tell them what we want them to become. And I think in Africa, or rather Zambia, we say if you've not achieved, in terms of education, then you will not amount to be anything. And you're a professor, and you've just told us that there's a difference between education
and learning.
So how do we change that narrative, Professor?
Awesome question. Here is what other countries are doing, something called competence-based education. And I think our Ministry of Education might be aware of this already. But not many African countries are onto that yet. So what they are doing is they've redesigned the curriculum completely. And they have no exams from class 1 to class 6. No exams. What you want is for kids to learn, not so much to pass and cram books. After all, knowledge is on their smartphones, and this generation, that's what they'll be using. And that's the point. The kids allowed to come with their gadgets. Everyone should have a smartphone or an iPad, right from preschool. Yes. And when they come into class, teachers are not teachers. So teachers themselves are trained to become facilitators of learning. not to come and regurgitate knowledge. The teacher is no longer the monopoly of knowledge. It's on the smartphone. In fact, the teacher can say something and the kid goes on Google and disproves the teacher. Like, no, sorry, sir, you are wrong, but the latest is this. So the teacher hasn't seen that yet.
Yeah, true.
So it's not about the teacher going there and emptying himself, no. It's to facilitate the kids to discover that knowledge themselves on those gadgets, okay? That's one. Two, you begin to cluster them according to their areas of interest that you begin to notice in them. So if you see a kid is always playing with stuff, you know, could be an engineer, a doctor, you begin to put them, someone dancing, singing, you know, this one is an artist. So they eventually end up in clusters according to interests you begin to notice as a teacher. Then you also further cluster them according to their speed of learning. So the slow learners are on their own, the fast learners on their own. This then stops the slow learners from being frustrated by the fast learners and the teachers from focusing on only the fast learners and leaving other kids behind, which is what happens in our usual system. Okay? Could be a very bright kid but is slow, but brighter than the faster one. But they are left out of the system and eventually they drop out. But very brilliant. So then you further cluster them. And then you bring in technology now, so things like augmented reality or virtual reality goggles. So if you want, say, those guys who seem like the engineers, you want to take them down into a factory or down the mine. They wear those goggles and they are in Mopani mine, and you go underground and you are teaching. And the whole point here is, by the time a child leaves high school or college or university, from day one, they must be ready for work. Nobody should ask for experience.
Oh, beautiful.
The fact that they say we need 3 years experience, what they are saying is the school system didn't prepare you for work. So we still need you to work before we hire you.
Exactly.
So what was I doing for 20-something years in school if it didn't get me ready for work? What were they teaching me? You should have been making me ready for work.
Exactly.
Now I come here, I apply for a job, we want 5 years experience. But I've come from school. Sorry. They are saying you are not ready. The school system failed. But we continue to do the same year in, year out.
Exactly.
It's so nonsensical. So you redesign the curriculum and begin to ensure that kids are acquiring competencies in addition to knowledge from day one in school. And the teachers are not teachers. They are facilitators of learning. And they too have to change their mindset completely. They have to acquire new skills on how to be a facilitator, not a teacher. They become mentors. And that's the future.
And that's where we need to go.
Indeed. And our school system is still training kids for jobs that will no longer be there in 10 to 15 years because of technology.
Now, talking about technology, I think, before we went on break, we talked about our education system, which actually is not working. I mean, you're teaching things that were meant for the industrial age in the information age.
Correct.
So how do you expect people to perform? Now, you've done a lot of work around, hence the book, Essential Management and Leadership. And I'm told this book has been read by a few presidents. And I'm hoping our head of state can also. You can gift him the book.
Should do that.
You should do that, yeah. Now, let's talk about leadership. What is a mind of a leader? Is that, how do I put this question?
Yeah.
What is the attitude that one must carry to be a good leader? Is there such a thing as a good leader or a bad leader? Or it all depends on your attitude as an individual?
Even the plethora of questions you are raising just shows how complex the subject is.
It is, yeah.
It's many-sided.
Okay, let's talk about the mind of a leader.
Don't worry. Let's lay the foundation. To lead comes from the word laedo. Laedo means finding a path and taking others there. So,
laedo.
Yes.
So is that Greek?
It's Latin. So
Latin, okay.
Yes. So it's really, a leader is like an explorer. You are taking people through uncharted waters. Because look, you are leading them into the future. Who has been to the future? No one. You say I have a vision, but it's just a hypothesis of what the future might become. But yet you want to lead others there, which means you have to persuade others to come to a place you have never been yourself. Kind of like Moses leading the children of Israel from Egypt to the promised land. He had never been there too. So a leader is an explorer, la edo. Okay?
Wow.
And the key word for a leader is influence. It's not position. A leader does not come, leadership is not from a position. It's within you, and that's why even if you leave a position, you are still a leader. It doesn't remain in the office. That's management. Okay, so a leader uses influence, manager uses authority, which is in the office. When you walk away, they can even pour water on you on the street. Your former employee, former junior, because you don't have the authority now.
True.
But a leader, even after you leave, people still come after you because it is within you. So we talk about you be and then you do. This is a leader. That's why we are called human beings, not human doings. So it's not about doing, it's about being, and then others see what I am, and they want to pattern their lives after me. And when I say, let's go east, they follow because of some things they've seen in me. And that could be your character. It could be your appearance, I don't know. It could be the way you do things, maybe the level of knowledge or whatever, but it's within you. It makes them want to follow you voluntarily. So leadership is the creation of voluntary followers. They don't follow you because they are forced or they are afraid. They want to follow you.
Wow.
That's a leader.
I want to be that leader. What do I need to do
Build
to
influence.
be that leader?
Build influence. Create influence. How do you create? What is influence? Influence is making people to do certain things or to act in certain ways.
Voluntarily.
Either because they love you or because they like you or because they admire you. Now, what is it that will create that admiration? Those are the things that you need to work on. And one of them we say is become very knowledgeable. Because when you are knowledgeable, when you speak, people want to listen. Have you been to a meeting where many people are talking and people are making noise? When this person stands up, everyone goes, shh.
Yes, yes.
So you wonder why this one? Influence. It could be that when they speak, there's a lot of sense and people don't want to miss anything. So it could be knowledge. But could be you should create good memories in people's minds. Good memories about you. So when they hear your name, what comes to their mind? If by your attitude, by your behavior, the way you act, the way you deal with people, the way you treat people, when your name is mentioned and people are about to eat lunch, they say, please don't mention that name, we'll lose appetite. Then you can't influence anybody. Absolutely. Yeah. So you need simple respect, simple humanity, where you just respect everybody. You walk in there, you find the receptionist, you treat the receptionist like you treat the boss of the place. That already begins to build you influence. People want to listen to you. Hey, we are attracted to whoever respects us. And that's how you get followers. Simply by creating lovely memories. Simple things. Birthdays. Telling people happy birthday. Or even organize surprise birthdays in the office. If you are the leader there, you are the boss there. That simple act builds good memories. Now, I've seen people who do amazing things. Where I was working, we got a boss who designed a system where once a year all staff we travel to Dubai. Now, there had been bosses before. They never thought that you could work out a strategy where people contribute to do things and you find yourself on an airline almost feeling it all the way to Dubai with families. And I used to wonder, how come all those others never thought of this? And we developed such wonderful memories of that gentleman. He even organized trips to China too. It wasn't like we were actually paying ourselves. But the way it was organized, everyone could afford, even the security guard. He's in China. He's never been on a plane. Wow. He was just thinking, how can I help my people to go and buy things that are cheap, come and build their houses, every one of them. And he would say, I don't want any of you renting a house. By the time I leave this place, you should own homes. That thinking of others. So when we talk about servant leadership or charismatic leadership, and I know in the Catholic Church, charismata has a meaning, a spiritual meaning, like impartation. But in management, charisma, we refer to being other people-minded, that you're always considering others. And that creates that magnet or magnetism that attracts them to you because you're thinking about them all the time. How can I impact their lives? How can I make their lives better? How can I create wellness or well-being among the people I work with? Don't wake up in the morning thinking, who can I mess up today?
Of course.
So you arrive, good morning, madam, what is good about today? Or we just keep quiet. But get up and say, who can I make feel better about themselves
How
today?
can I be of service today?
Right on the road as you are driving, somebody comes and asks, can I join? And you're like, sure. Because you are thinking of, how can I bless people today? That's an attitudinal thing. And a leader must have that positive attitude that is other people minded. Then you create influence. Your appearance also matters if you're going to create influence. So don't be careless, dress carelessly, talk carelessly. You can't influence people, even as basic as grooming. Communication skills, ability to really communicate well. Yeah, you know when to say what and what not to say when. Then you know how not to step on people's toes. That builds your influence as well. So I mean, in the end, we're talking about emotional intelligence.
Oh yeah. I just love that. Now we're going to take a short break. When we come back, let's talk about where we are as a country.
All right.
Do we have leaders that can take the country where we want it to be?
All right.
Without sounding political.
Thank you.
We take a short break, and when we come back, we continue talking to Professor Micheal Munkumba. Stay with us.
Kodi mix imene mwamaliza kale?
Tamaliza kale nyimbo.
Lega ndingomva pati jaina bwa.
Ende. Maimba.
Iyi ndimbambande bwa.
Ndimbamba.
Chiso
Kodi sumu namvesa corona.
akuti bwanji zakulazima.
Kulibe kupasana mwono wako manja. So pano funika pafupi kusamba kumanja ndi sopo olo kuika hand sanitizer. Kodi mask muli nayo?
Mask ineyo ndimabwereka pabasipo. Conductor kapena bus driver amakhala nayo mask yobwerekesa.
Kubwerekesana mamask siku zatesa corona. So pano munthu aliyense afanika mask yake basi.
Pabasipo ndamva nalugamba nkhani ya physical distancing.
So physical distance kumafunika kukhala 1 meter ndi anthu ena. Mukuchita tero tizamaliza corona.
Hai ndamva. Ndiye bwanji ningomva nyimbo yonse ndaluganiza kuti ngati mix ili bwino mwina maba nipereka ku radio.
Remember to wash your hands with soap regularly. For more information, call 909. This message is supported by the Ministry of Health in partnership with Oxfam.
Welcome back. If you're joining us now, I'm talking to Professor Micheal Munkumba, and it's happy learning for all of us. How I wish I had a paper and a pen, but like you rightfully said, I will watch this program over and over again so that I can learn. Now, before we went on break, we're talking about leadership, how one carries themselves, how you can now create this influence around you so that people can actually follow you. But before we dive deep into what you were talking about, I want to ask, how do you manage to remember? You know, we read a lot, and you find that, and I know it's for most people, you read, but you find that when it's time for you to articulate or teach, you just go blank. Is there, you're a professor, I'm guessing you've read so many books, and you can easily, remember I read this in this book. How do you do that? Do you exercise your mind?
There is what I'm laughing. There is what I'm laughing. There was a gentleman who said, I can come and help you teach, blah, blah, blah. Oh, sure. Yeah. Okay, here is a 2-hour session, teach it. 30 minutes later, he ran out. I have finished. Say, but the people are still there, 1.5 hours to go. He said, I've gone through all the materials.
I know.
So, yeah. Now, how do you remember everything that you read? There's something called the cone of learning. The cone of learning. It's a pyramid of learning. And it's really about how much can you retain of the stuff you you read or hear or and so it talks about it kind of differentiates between sitting in a lecture room and listening to a lecturer talk and go away versus watching, so audiovisual, you're hearing, you're seeing, versus participating in a discussion, versus seeing a demonstration, versus you going out to teach others. And of course, the worst, which you almost retain nothing, is listening to a lecture and going away. After 2 weeks, you almost remember nothing. Then the one of you teaching others what you have heard, you retain up to 90%.
Perfect.
And then the others are in the middle. So like participating in a discussion, you may retain 30-35%, and so on and so forth. Seeing a demonstration, you retain perhaps 60-something%.
Yeah.
So with knowledge, it's almost like, suppose this room was dark and you had a candle with light, the only one. The room would be lit but dim. So if the others have candles, no light, then you go and share the light. Your candle doesn't lose its light, but the others also get lit and the room is brighter.
Beautiful.
Knowledge is like that. As you acquire it, when you share it, it now becomes settled within you. It crystallizes. It becomes yours now because you have shared. It's the only thing which by giving, you actually now really retain it. Many other things, when you give, you don't have it, but not knowledge. So when you read a book, find somebody to share with, either to mentor or to just say, guys, like at work, this is what I've just learned. Now that you are a teacher now and that knowledge is yours. But if you think, hey, I can't share this with people, it's too nice, you also lose it. So now for us being, like for me being a teacher, because I'm always teaching, I'm always sharing, I'm always training, I'm mentoring. So this stuff become mine.
Wow, that's so powerful.
Yes.
So we learn best by teaching, is that what you're saying?
By sharing with other people, by giving what you have acquired. Then it becomes yours.
Beautiful. Now, I was looking at your CV, you're well-traveled. I don't know how many countries you've been to. I was like, oh my God, it's been everywhere.
It's just that I go to many same ones, many times, maybe about 60 or so.
Okay. You've been out there. You've worked in Kenya. You've worked in Tanzania, Zambia now. And coming back home, do you think we have the right leaders that should take us where we need to be?
Okay.
That's question one. On question two, are we where we are supposed to be as a country?
Right. Okay, let's start with the first one.
Yeah.
In terms of working, by the way, although I was based in Tanzania, I just went to Kenya as a student, came back and left my family there. So then, But in terms of work, Tanzania was just the headquarters. Our operations from Nigeria to South Africa, Dubai. But also in terms of memberships, conferences, and all kinds of things, I don't know, UN in New York, all the way to Shanghai, etc. So in some of these countries, I can say I've been in this place for a total of 20 months. I'm in that place for a total of so much. So in many countries, going there many times cumulatively a number of years. So it gives you this bigger picture of Africa, the world. Do we have leaders? Singapore developed under Prime Minister Lee Kuan Yew. He's written that book, From Third to First World. It started off no natural resources, no minerals, not even water to drink. They were importing water to drink from Malaysia. They had nothing. The only thing they had was their people. They said the only resource we have are human resource. So they just designed a very good education system. And Singapore moved from third world to first world, like the US. That small country. So they only had human resource. So do we have leaders in Zambia? Yes. We have more than enough leaders here. Maybe the other question should be, are they leading, or is there room for improvement? What else could they do? Yes, now that's a whole lot of, not Pandora's box, but discussions that we can have. But we do have people here. Some are here, others are in the diaspora. A lot. Zambia has exported human resources like you can't imagine. They are heading all sorts of institutions across the world, from Australia and New Zealand to Canada to the UK to the Far East. They are even Africa. Go to South Africa, you find
So many.
So many Zambians. It even pains me sometimes when I think, oh, these ones, they should be home and things, which is partly why I ended up, no, I gotta go home. We can't all be out there developing others and our own country. It's not. So do we have people in Zambia? I would say yes, we do. Is there room for improvement? Massive room for improvement. And that's true for almost everywhere. No one has arrived when it comes to that. We can only rank ourselves by our performance and say, is this the best? Could we be doing better? And if we are not doing well enough, the wise thing to do is not to become defensive, but to say, how can we improve?
True.
Because it's not about us, it's about our country, it's about everyone else.
Yeah.
And if as leaders we don't lead, then the country suffers. The poor remain poor. I mentioned going into the villages. You just have to go to those villages and find the level of poverty, the level of hopelessness. And it's not because they don't have what to do. There's land.
They do, yes.
Water. We have more than 40% of the water in SADC. Some say 60%. We have water. You can even go and dig a borehole. And you find they're asking you, as you come to and bring us vegetables from the market. But there's a borehole there, so they have water. You're just drinking the water. Not even a garden. So that goes back to the minds.
Minds, for
and
sure.
the leader shapes minds, shapes culture. And that's how you transform a society. So is there room for improvement in Zambia? Massively. Do we have people? Yes. So now skills are required. How to lead. Just being elected as an MP doesn't make me a leader at all. I must now deliver against certain set parameters.
Yeah.
And that I need to be helped. I need to be skilled. Because I may not have what it takes.
Wow. That's nicely answered. So there's actually hope for Zambia.
Oh, hope is what we should never lose. I am always optimistic, very optimistic, but things will not drop from nowhere. And I have a friend, my pastor, who likes Pastor Chiluba. He likes saying, nobody will come and develop Zambia. Not even the Chinese. They can only help us develop ourselves.
Oh, yes.
The development is ourselves. If we don't get it right ourselves, we'll remain like this another 50 years from now. We're already more than 50 years. If you look around and say, if a 50-year-old person has only done this in the face of all the resources we have, would you celebrate? The answer is no. So do you want to see this 50 years later? Of course not. But that won't happen unless you take steps. And so I am hopeful, but it's predicated on the fact that we'll take the right steps. Otherwise, our grandchildren may exactly be where we are.
Exactly. I love that. Now, when I was preparing for this interview, I heard you talk about the power of the subconscious mind.
All right.
And that's something I want you to talk about before we come to an end of the
Yes.
program. What is it and how does one make use of it?
Correct.
Because we all have it, isn't it?
Yes. Yes. There are two things. We can talk about the right mind, the right brain and the left brain.
And the left brain.
And there are scientific arguments against that, but I think it makes sense. Scientists and psychologists may say, other things. Then there is the subconscious, the unconscious, subconscious, and the conscious mind. Now you asked about the subconscious mind. Now we are discussing right now, and you can all hear me speak, and the viewers can hear me speak. That's the conscious mind at work. When you go to sleep, your conscious mind is not there.
Yeah.
You don't know. I mean, something will climb your head. A dangerous snake can come and you're just doing this. You're just, because your conscious mind is absent, okay? So what is making you continue to breathe?
It's a
Subconscious mind. What's making the heart continue to beat when you can no longer control it? Subconscious mind. So it's a very powerful force that's within us. We start off when you are young like an empty whiteboard, or those days we used to call them blackboard with a chalk, or the whiteboard now, or the screen, and it's blank when you are young, and people write on it. Okay, right? It's called what's the word? Within ourselves, we have this. I remember it. I've lost the psychology, the psychology word for it. The schema. Now the schema is within you. And whatever people have said to you growing up, and even now, whatever you've seen is written on that schema. And when you come across something You never seen it before, you say, that's not possible because it doesn't exist on your schema.
On your schema, yeah.
So when you go to the airport and you give your passport and they scan
For
it,
scanning, yes.
what that person is seeing, the system is scrolling through a lot of faces and names, and then when it gets to yours, it freezes.
Yeah.
Then they look at you, they say, okay, this is a person. That thing was designed based on how our subconscious mind works. That's what it does. So you see something and
quickly.
If there's nothing, you're like, you are eating that. That's not food because on your schema it doesn't exist.
Oh,
but to the guy from China, that dog is nice meat.
It's nice meat for sure.
For you, are like, how can you eat that? But if you were born there, you'd be eating that. Okay? So this subconscious mind, for all its power, it cannot tell the difference between foolish and wise, right or wrong. It only acts on what it receives. So if I speak to myself, me, I'm a poor person, me, I'm useless, the subconscious mind receives that as fact and it works to fulfill it.
And it will do whatever it takes to make sure you're poor.
Yes, because that's what you've declared and it must fulfill that. So like the GPS, it must take you to that destination you have declared. This is scientific. If you say positive, powerful, awesome, scary things that are huge goals, you know, they are audacious, you can't even believe you'd achieve them, the subconscious mind picks it as fact. You may have nothing, but it begins to work to take you there. So you sleep in the night, some ideas just pop up in your head. When I'm writing a book, for instance, I usually wake up many times in the night because these things just drop in my mind and I have to write them down. Partly because it's the right brain working the creative part. Subconscious is making my right brain really produce ideas, but if I don't act on them, they'll be thrown out into the unconscious mind and I can't retrieve. So it's like a GPS, so it's trying to take you to that destination by the best possible route because of what you've said, what you've told it. And people are not aware of this. So they declare things and the subconscious mind fulfills them. Negative things.
Wow. Can we say you come back for another program and talk about more? In fact, teach on how we should make use of it.
Then we can talk about the right brain as
yes,
well.
So that's a date that I'm making on behalf of the people that are watching us at home. Now, doctor, if you were on your deathbed and you were given a second chance to live, what would you do differently?
You know, there's an exercise I give leaders. I say, imagine you are like 80 years, 85, 90, and you've just died, and people are they're writing your obituary. What 3 things would you like them to put there which will make you smile in the coffin? And people will go, no, we in our culture we don't want to discuss death. I said, naturally it's a question of vision. What is your vision for the future? Now I've taken you to that future and say, look back, what would you like to see that you have achieved? For me, if I was to live all over again, if I looked for a job, it would be just for experience and networking. I wouldn't look for a job to become an employee. No, I wouldn't want to. Matter of fact, as early as 1993, I knew I didn't have to be an employee. And then I was actually training people in Namibia, Minister of Health. And it just hit me, and I was looking for purpose. What really is my purpose? I had gone to the UK, studied, and I'm back, and now I was working outside the country. I'd left Zambia. What is my purpose? And it became very clear what my purpose was. Very, very clear, like just I saw it. And so, you know, matters of purpose are like standing on a hill and you look far into the distance at the mountains that look hazy and blue. And you say, I want to go to those mountains. But you don't know the valleys and the rivers and the thorns and the animals in between. You only discover when you begin to walk. So I saw those mountains. I said, I'm going there. So I came back home, registered the company that time, and I called it Salutis Limited. I gave 3 names. I remember 2, Salutis and Jemima. Jemima was the daughter of Job after he recovered from his illness. Jemima. The other one was Karen Hapok. I gave that. Then I gave Salutis, which means salvation. And salvation was accepted. But of course, I met snakes and rivers. I needed to acquire skills. I needed a lot of things. So that company just went dormant. But that tells you that as early as that time, I think I was like 29, 30, I knew I needed to leave employment and start business. but I didn't, okay? And so what then has transpired in between is what I wouldn't want to do that. I would go and start business there because it's a different type of experience on its own from that of being an employee. So I would go straight into entrepreneurship and become an employer. But that's me. And there are many people like me who are in employment. But there are others who are cut out to be employees. They do very well there. If they go into entrepreneurship, they will drown. But if you have that tug in your heart that you are always frustrated at work, it means you are probably an employer, but you are now being employed, and that's why you are fighting everybody. So for me, if I was to do it all over again, I would go. I would first of all find big goals, because when you set a goal,
it has to be bigger.
It's the way the GPS works. You know GPS? Say I'm going to Ndola, and you put in your phone and it calculates the routes and gives you the best route. A goal gives a destination to the mind, your internal GPS, and then the strategy to get there. So I would set very high goals and then go out into business.
Such that facts don't count.
No. The reality becomes an illusion. Wow. I am looking at the reality in the future, and then I would go out immediately and struggle and persist.
And make sure
not run back to look for a job, persist until I succeed.
Like that. Yes. Wow, thank you so much. It was nice talking to you. I'm looking at this book, and you're saying for anybody to get this book, they have to find you. Is that right?
Yes.
A must read.
Yes, what happened once it was published, I think it kind of got sold out so quickly before I could even launch it. Then I printed again, and then the habit of it's me who is distributing remained. And I would teach my students, they would all buy it, so it was being sold. So I never took it to any bookshop.
Wow. Okay.
So I'm still distributing myself.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for coming to Ignite with Mwangala, for teaching. We're definitely having you back, and this time around we'll make sure that we all have our papers and pens to take notes, because I think there's so much that you need to teach all of us, and there's so much that we need to learn from you, and I think that's a route that we must all take. For me, I've declared you're my mentor, and you know you can't say no, we're on air.
Yeah, that's a smart one.
Smart one.
Yes.
The entire country is watching us.
How do I say no?
And how do you say no? You just have to say yes.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Professor.
It's my pleasure.
And this is not the last time we'll have you.
I look forward.
Again. Okay.
I look forward.
So there you have it. We're talking to Professor Micheal Munkumba. There's so much that we talked about, but one lesson that I have picked is that a leader is not born. You can actually work on yourself to become a great leader. You can work on your influence. You don't have to necessarily have a position for you to be called a leader. You can be a leader even where you are. Remember to make every day count. This has been Mwangala Chakalashi Santos. Join us for another exciting episode of Ignite with Mwangala.